Because when it comes to negotiation, you can't negotiate for something that the other person doesn't want, right? You got to sell them first. So you got to take a seller through a sales process first. You have to get them to the point where they've made the decision, I want this help. I want to make a change. I want to get rid of this house.
What's up, y'all? You're listening to the CarrotCast podcast, the podcast with a funny name, but a big mission. We help thousands of real estate investors and agents grow rock-solid mindsets, do better marketing so that you can build a business of freedom and impact. I'm your host, Trevor Mock. Let's dive into today's episode. Alrighty, CarrotCast listeners, I've got a special treat for you guys. So what we're going to be doing over the next several weeks, and if you're listening to this later, you're going to be able to see the whole package all at once, but we're going to be diving deep into negotiation. And whenever we look at our stats on Carrot or do surveys and talk to people, one of the top things that always pops up is negotiation. I've got Mr. John Martinez, who I will reintroduce you guys to here in a second, here on this episode with me. But one of our most popular, consistently popular episodes that we've ever done is our first episode with John. The second episode with John on negotiation was also amazing, gets a lot of views. And so we're going to link both of those up in the show notes of this episode. But guys, what we're going to be going through is how do you make sure that when you're getting these leads, that you're working your butt off to get these evergreen leads through Carrot or through any other marketing source. When you get these leads, how do you make sure to close them? And I'm going to tell a quick story, then I'm going to reintroduce John, and we're going to dive in on how you guys do the same thing. So I was talking with a customer just recently who's now become kind of a business partner and been in real estate for a long time, over 100 deals, hundreds of deals, actually. He's a one-man show. He's pretty darn good at negotiation, very good at negotiation. There's two people in the same market. This guy wanted more leads. And he's like, if I get a lead, I'm going to be able to close it. Another guy in the same market is getting plenty of leads and complaining that they're not good leads because they're not closing into deals. And so what do? We launch a campaign in the exact same market for the exact same keywords, get pretty much probably similar leads. And this was 3 weeks ago. We've got 7 leads, two deals under contract. One closes on Monday, $60,000 spread within 3 weeks. Okay, guys, the only difference between this client that I'm working with to close these deals and the other one is this client is taking these leads and passing them through a real process that he actually learned from John. So this guy learned his initial stuff from John that you guys are going to hear on this call. And he's closing half of the leads into deals right now, guys, which is crazy. So if everyone's out there looking for how can I get more leads? How can I get more leads? Yes, let's get more. But how do we close the current ones we've got better? So to help us do that, I'm going to reintroduce Mr. John Martinez, the top sales coach out there in the real estate investor space, worked with tons of our customers. I don't even know how many, but tons of them. And welcome back, man.
Oh, man, always good to be here. This is one of my favorite shows to be on.
Well, John, for people who don't know you, why don't we'll give the Cliff Notes version of who you are and what you do, and we'll link up the previous episodes so they can check out your full backstory and all the other amazing stuff you've done. But who the heck are you, man? And what do you do for real estate investors?
Yeah, so long career in sales. About 6 years ago, I opened my own sales training business. And about a year into it, the REI space took over the whole sales training business. So for about the last 5 or so years, I've been laser focused training acquisition agents and investors to close leads.
And you work with a lot of the top investors in the country. I mean, I could go down the list of what companies you've worked with, who you've worked with. It's the top of the top. And so when we're doing this series, y'all, like I said, we're bringing in the best. And we're going to be having a couple different points of view. There's probably lots of overlap on process and thought process because negotiation is about building that relationship, building trust and credibility. But the cool thing is the 3 gentlemen I'm going to bring on all have some slightly different flavors to it, which is going to be really cool. So we're starting out with John, the one that has had the most views by far of any negotiation expert we've ever had on the podcast. So I'm going to dive in right at the start, John. Got a few questions for you, then we kind of riff for the next 20, 30 minutes and some things that people can do right now today to take to their next appointments, to take to their next follow-up with leads, to close more deals. What are some of the biggest kind of rookie mistakes that you see going on consistently when people get a lead and they're not closing them at such a high rate? What are some of those rookie mistakes that people they need to avoid?
Yeah, just off the top of my head, I'd say the 2 biggest mistakes I see on a consistent basis that really just kills conversion rates are getting the price or what someone wants, just being diehard about getting what they want for their house right at the beginning and using that number to judge whether or not it's a good lead. And the next one is leading with an offer. So if you want, I could just kind of knock those both down one after the other.
Let's do it, man. Yep.
Oh, great. So, when a lead call comes in, a lot of investors and AMs have been trained for some reason, I guess, to qualify the lead to get a number out of the seller. And I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think you should ever ask for the number, and I'll tell you why. Except for in one case that's very specific. When you get that number one, it's going to change, right? With the right conversation, with the right sales process, with a little bit of rapport built, you get deeper into a conversation, you get deeper into, what they're dealing with, what they want, and so on. That number changes pretty rapidly. Most investors, when they talk to someone, if someone wants 100% of ARV, an hour later, they're walking out with 60, 65, 67% ARV. Yeah. So you don't want to use that first number to judge because that number changes. The other reason why you don't want to get a number up front is because mentally, it just crushes salespeople. You start to prejudge. If you are walking in and you're looking at a house that you need to pick up for, let's say, 100K, and the seller tells you, I'm not taking any lower than 250, you kind of already lost the mental game. Yep. You're going to be thinking, there's no way, this is a waste of time. Even if I go on the appointment, I'm just going to kind of check the boxes and, just run through it quickly. And I'm not going to dive too deep into anything or try too hard. Just from that mental aspect, you set yourself up for failure. Now, the one time you would ask, but I don't see this happen a lot. The one time you would ask is if you need that to qualify the lead, just because you're inundated with so many leads, you got to rank them somehow.
Gotcha.
What's going to be virtual? What's going to be face-to-face? What are we going to run versus not run? And so on. But I don't see a lot of that in the market. I don't see a lot, we work with a lot of clients coast to coast, and not very many tell me just, I've got so many leads, I can't get to them all. If there's a certain number of leads, they usually just hire another acquisition manager and they handle them. The biggest concern I usually hear is we can't hire another acquisition manager because we don't have enough leads and we really want to. Gotcha. So that's the caveat. That's the one time you would. But again, just a quick recap. When you ask it mentally, it puts you in a bad place. It changes your attitude. Your attitude drives your behavior. And then again, that number is going to change. So let's not use it because we know that's not a real number. The second thing I see on a consistent basis would be leading with the offer. You never want to lead with the offer. And this kind of goes into negotiation. I'll tell you why. Two reasons here too. Number one, the first reason is the only reason why a seller is talking to you to begin with is not because you're good looking or have a great personality. You might, but they want that number from you. That's the only reason why you're having a conversation. That's your only leverage, right? So once you give that up, the conversation usually stops pretty quickly. You don't have time to ask more questions, dig deeper, because they've got what they want, right? So the conversation usually gets cut short. You miss important information. Your chances of converting go lower and lower and lower. The other reason why you don't want to lead with the offer is because when it comes to negotiation, you can't negotiate for something that the other person doesn't want, right? You got to sell them first. So you got to take a seller through a sales process first. You have to get them to the point where they've made the decision, I want this help. I want to make a change. I want to get rid of this house. And only when they make that decision should you then go into a negotiation. Although negotiation doesn't sell. The negotiation, in my opinion, is meant to do one thing and one thing only. It is meant to relieve the final, what we call deal killers, things that get in the way of deals from closing, even with motivated sellers. It's the final deal killer of, am I leaving money on the table? And while they're thinking that and feeling that and wondering, it keeps people from signing the contract. Maybe I should talk to other investors. Maybe I should get more offers. Maybe I should just sit and think about this for a while. It stops the deals from going forward. So we don't want to negotiate before the person is sold. If someone came up to my door right now, I see my front door from where I'm at, and they offered me, I don't know, a Cabbage Patch Kid. I don't know where that came from, but whatever. I don't care how good of a negotiator they were. If they were, Roger Dawson or Chris Voss, I don't want it. No matter how good they are,
Yep.
it doesn't matter. I'm not sold, right? So those are probably the two most common I see that have just a huge impact on conversion rates.
Dude, so I've got a couple of follow-up questions there, because that's really good, because I have known investors and still know investors who make those mistakes all the time. Would you suggest, like even on the web form, so here with Carrot, the second form asks, it's like, are you willing to sell? Is it listed with an agent? It asks something about, I don't know the exact words, but it asks something about the value or what would you take for it. Mm-hmm. Would you ask that question on that step 2 form in any way, shape, or form to kind of know where their mind is, or is that something you would totally leave for the meeting?
Yeah. Again, only if you were using it to qualify or rank leads in some way.
Cool.
Because if you know much more about internet marketing than I do, but the more information you ask for, the less chance they're going to submit it, right? Yep. So I probably wouldn't ask for the 2 reasons I gave. Number one, you're already judging that lead.
Yep.
Right. You want to go into every sales conversation fresh and with hope, and just stick to the sales process. And if you've already decided you're not getting the deal, you're just not going to follow the rules. You're just not going to play it 100%.
Yep. So John, digging deeper on, I think it was the second one there. First of all, we don't want to ask their number soon, but also we don't want to give our number soon. At what point do you kind of consider the person sold? Is there a trigger that goes off in mind going, okay, yeah, they said this thing, therefore they're indicating they're sold. Now we can talk numbers.
Yeah. So there's really 2 things we look for that kind of mimics our step-by-step sales process. The first area we dive into is motivation. Like, they've got to have a compelling reason to sell.
Yep.
And usually they always do. You market for motivated sellers, but it's not just about having a reason. You really want to bring it to the surface. You want to explore it. You want to understand it. So when you get to explaining your offer, you know kind of what terms to explain it in, and how to explain it in terms that relate directly to them and whatever their situation is. So we're looking for motivation, and we stay in that area until we hear kind of personal impact or emotional words like, maybe they want to sell a house because there's an investment opportunity. So if they're really excited and anxious to move on, or if they're distressed and they're stressed and worried and tired, I wait until the conversation gets to that point. And then I know, okay, we probably hit a compelling reason or 2 why they want to sell. And it's fresh, it's on the table, they're feeling it. It increases their urgency to take action, because when you have a problem, the more painful it is, the more you want to solve it, right?
Yep.
Next, what we want to do is go through all the reasons why they wouldn't sell, right? Things that will get in the way, because everyone's talked to those super motivated sellers. Let's maybe think of foreclosure situation, right? Yep. Motivated seller, losing the house anyways, everything makes complete sense, but they don't do the deal, right? We all see most super motivated sellers who don't move forward. The reason why is because there's some type of concern, we call them deal killers, something that's getting in the way, even though the motivation's there. So we want to kind of check through the most common things that get in the way and either eliminate them or deal with them however we can. Okay. And only after that, only after we figure out exactly why they would do business with us and everything that would get in the way, do we move into where we would, the traditional type of close where we would present our solution and then eventually how much we'd pay for the house.
What type of language and wording would someone use as you're kind of going through figuring out the deal killers, what would make them not sell? Are there certain words that you would use to kind of pull all of them out?
Yeah. So we like to attack the ones head on that we know are most common. So for example, as I'm transitioning into that conversation, it might sound like this. Hey, listen, I've got a pretty good idea of why you want to sell. The thing is, I run into people all the time who really want to sell and I make an offer and they love the offer. But even though everything seems to work on those fronts, stuff can sometimes get in the way and stop us from moving forward. Is it okay if we talk about those things for a second? Yeah, okay. Well, hey, listen, I'm going to go other options right now. So here's what that sounds like. Listen, I'm obviously not your only option. I think we're still trying to figure out if I'm the best or not. I don't think either of us are sure. Have you thought about just listing it?
Yeah.
can you keep it for another 4, 5, 6 years? Have you considered taking the $60,000 to $100,000 and just doing the repairs yourself?
Yep.
The money I'd make by doing the repairs and selling it, you'd get to keep. Mm-hmm. And we kind of push towards all those things that are already in their head that are slowing them down. So there's other options, and then there's just generalized risk and discomfort. And then oftentimes we see not decision makers, but influencers, right? Someone's father is advising them, a professional of some kind, a CPA, an attorney, a friend. We want to pull those people out too and figure out what their concerns are so we can address those head on as well. So those are probably the three biggest: your influencers, your other options, risk and discomfort. The final deal killer is the fear of leaving money on the table, but you hit that in the negotiation.
Dude, this is so good. And what I want people to do is reverse back and hear the way John says, and not just the words, but you can see even he went into character there. Like, there's a seller sitting across the way. And the cool thing about negotiation, especially if you're a real estate agent listening to this, who is starting to adopt and embrace hybrid, which we've been hitting a lot. And we've been driving the hybrid message for 2 to 3 years now. And now that as of the time we're recording this, inventories are really low. And so agents are like, where do we get inventory? Well, it's exactly what investors are doing every day. And like 80% of their leads, sometimes more, actually want retail anyway. And so what I want you guys and gals to realize is, yes, we're giving you the words, the thought process to go through, to talk with the seller, to guide you and them towards a mutual amazing result. This isn't about pulling one over on somebody. It's not about trying to get something where that person loses and you win. That's not what this is about at all. It's about going through and talking to a person in a real way, getting to know them, getting to know their situation better than they probably even came into that meeting knowing their situation. And then you, in an honest way, helping them to get to that conclusion that you're the right one to work with to solve their problem. So this is truly serving your sellers, guys and gals. That's what negotiation's about.
Absolutely. I think you've got to be incredibly authentic and transparent. If you feel like you've got to hide what you're doing in any way, then you're not selling right. You've probably got a flawed process. You should be able to walk in, like the two things I just discussed. You can walk in and say, here's what I want to do today. Listen, I want to talk about all the reasons why you would sell, to figure out if there's even a compelling reason why you'd go through this process. Once we get through with that, I want to kind of uncover and put out on the table all the reasons why it might not make sense to sell to me or an investor or for cash or right now. And then I think once we have everything out on the table, all the reasons why you would, all the reasons why you wouldn't, I give you an offer. It should at that point be fairly easy for you to decide, is this going to be a fit for me, or is this something I need to just put on the back burner for now or look at other options, right? You should be able to be that transparent and say, this is exactly what we're doing and why. If you're not, then I think you're doing something wrong.
Dude, and one thing that I want to pull out here for people to notice too. So you saw what John did there is he explained the process to them that they're going to experience before they experience it. So now they're not wondering, what is this like? When is he going to, come at me with this crazy question, or when is he going to pull this crazy salesman speak at me? It's like, no, he said exactly what they're going to talk about. Why would this work? Why would it not work? And then I'll make you an offer, and then you get to decide. And that's really simple, because then the person's disarmed. They go, oh, cool. That's how it's going to go down. We're going to talk about why it would, why it wouldn't. And then he's going to give me the thing. And they're not going to be wondering, why haven't you given me the offer yet? Why haven't you given me the offer yet? It's because we're not there yet. So John, a couple more questions here. So how do you position offers as a win-win, or how should a client position offers as a win-win for a seller, so everyone walks away feeling like they won in that transaction?
Yeah, so that really comes down to the negotiation. You want them to feel like they won.
Yep.
You want them to feel like they've squeezed all the juice out of the orange, right? They've squeezed every cent out of the deal. So there's a few different negotiation tactics. I'm not sure if I covered those in the last podcast or not, that are really, really effective at doing that. One is resetting expectations through something called price anchoring. Another one is just the way you kind of go back, and there's a couple of ways you can go back and forth while negotiating, if it's a give and take type of thing. Yep. And then the way you position your final offer is also really good for accomplishing that kind of win-win feeling as well. On top of all that, you got to back up before the negotiation even starts. You got to understand their situation, and they've got to feel like better than anyone else exactly what they're going through, exactly where they're at, exactly what they want. And you need to explain what you're going to do in those terms, right? Yeah. So you put all that together, you end up with a really good situation. Everyone's feeling good about the process.
Dude, so let's go through one of those things that you had mentioned. I'm sure we did dive into some of that, or maybe all of it, on a previous episode. Like, so we'll link it up, guys and gals. There will be a little bit of overlap here, but there's gonna be amazing stuff on each that we did not talk about. So you talked about going back and forth in a negotiation, and what's the best way for someone, if they're talking with a seller, to go back and forth in a healthy way that leads to a good outcome?
Yeah. So the number one rule there is, when you do a give and take, when it's back and forth, you never ever give money without taking something in return, right? I'm thinking, if someone was trying to sell me a car and I said, how much? And they said 10 grand. And I said, I don't know. And they said 95. And I said, no. And they said 9, 85, 8. Now I'm thinking, no way, because you were just taking me for a ride,
Gotcha.
Right?
Yep.
Now, if the car salesman said, listen, 10 doesn't work, if we can leave off the bumper to bumper warranty and just do powertrain, then we could take it down to 9250, right?
Gotcha.
We've got an even trade of value for value. So when you're going back and forth, it doesn't even matter if what you ask for is of equal value. It may even be something you're planning to do anyways, like a clean out or a certain time frame to move. It doesn't matter, right? You just offer it in exchange. So whenever you give more money, you've got to get something in return.
Dude, that's so good. My mind, I'm just thinking about what are some of those things that we could, offer up or hold back as an option. Are there some common ones you'd mentioned? Changing the move out date. Hey, it's moved up or moved back. Is there anything else that's kind of common for you as you're going in there talking to a seller? Yeah, this is something that could be given or taken.
Yeah, super simple stuff. Like, for example, hey, I told you can leave anything you want and we'll clean it all up. If you're able to take everything and just throw it into the garage so my crew doesn't have to come in and go through room by room and make it really easy, I think we could, maybe add about 2,500 to our offer, right?
Gotcha.
So just things like that. So the clean out is good. I like to use the decision time, right? So oftentimes I'd leave, so I spent a lot of time going coast to coast and buying houses when I was kind of learning this industry, and with investors. And one of the things that worked really well for me personally is, if I didn't get the deal, about 15 minutes later, I'd call back and say, listen, here's the deal. Love to buy the house. I know we didn't meet up on price. If I could get a contract signed within the next 90 minutes, I'd be able to add $5,000 to the offer.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
So even moving up decision time, right? And that probably worked about 50% of the time. People start to get that fear of loss, that the scarcity issue is there. So all that kind of stuff works. It really doesn't even matter how big or small it is. You have to exchange value for value.
Yep. Well, dude, so I love that, man. That's really good. So guys, you guys need to reverse and listen to that and put that in your playbook, like put that in your playbook. And John has a lot more of this, obviously in his training, they go in depth. And one of the cool things that I love about John's company is a lot of our higher level investors, they send their acquisition people there into that training, and it's got amazing online training. Out of COVID, John would usually do events. You guys still doing live events too?
Yeah, we've been doing just about one a year.
Yeah, cool. I like it. So that's one of the cool things is if you have a team, you don't have to do this. You can send your team to it, which is awesome. So two more questions, man. So on the offer, making it a no-brainer, you'd mentioned kind of the give and take, which is really, really powerful. What are some mistakes that investors are making right now around the offer that makes it to where it's just not working and they're not closing as much because of the way they made their offer?
Yeah, so they're upsetting people. Everyone's heard, around internet, wherever, everyone's heard, if you're not upsetting them or if you're not embarrassed, then your offer isn't low enough. True to an extent, that you need to make the right offer, right? You can't offer more than the house is worth or more than what you can pay. I get it. But if you upset somebody, it's fight or flight. They're going to get upset and push back and raise their voice, or they're going to completely shut down. Sales call will end. Let me think about it. Here's an excuse. So giving the low offer in such a way where you upset somebody is a massive mistake, because that typically will shut down the negotiation right there. And now, instead of being on the same team working towards a common goal, it's you against them, right? So that often stops the sales call right there. So that's probably the biggest mistake I see when people are kind of giving their offer and sliding into the negotiation.
Man, so I want to ask a question around hybrid. So we have a lot of our clients who are, once again, what we call hybrid. They're an investor and an agent investor, either way. And what we've been really driving is, of course, if you can take all those leads and have something to offer them rather than just a portion of them, you're going to serve your clients better. Your business is going to grow. Is there anything that the hybrid investor agent should do if they are going to present cash offer and a listing opportunity? Is there anything different that they should do in that process at all?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not sure what they're doing now, but a best practice, I would say, I guess a mistake I've seen in the past is presenting options. You don't want to present options, right? You want to make a recommendation. You're the professional. You know what these people need. The conversation will tell you. Yeah. And you can make a secondary offer, but you don't want to give options. You want to make a recommendation for whatever you think is best and explain why you think that's best. And if that doesn't work, then you can say, hey, we have another option. We have plan B if you want to take a look at that. Yeah. Because when you give, the more options you give, the more people have to think about and weigh out. And you're the professional, right? You wouldn't want to go to a doctor's office and he goes, well, you got this. You could take this medicine, or this medicine. What do you want? Right? That's insane. Yeah, so you want your doctor to say, hey, listen, based on my experience, my expertise, and the patients I've had in the past, I recommend this for you because this is your age, this is your lifestyle. I think this is the best for you. Yeah, that's what you want to go with.
Dude, and so would you say it in a similar way there? Hey, from my experience, this option I'd recommend. Would you at all say, oh, and there's if that doesn't work, there's this other thing, or would you kind of get the reaction from that first? Kind of how would that go down?
So I work mostly with people who are primarily investors, and they list it on the back end. If they don't get the investment deal is just more profitable for them. Yeah. So they go all the way with it, right? Because just think, even if you didn't have a second option, if you just made an offer, you don't just get an immediate yes or no and it's done, right? Yeah. There's some discussion afterward where we're still working through issues. It takes some time. So if you just immediately abandon and go to your second option, you're probably leaving a lot of deals on the table. And that may have been the best deal for them. And now you went to option 2, which isn't the best deal, and they reject them both. So you got to go all in. And only when it doesn't work out do you switch. Now, you want to prep people, right? In the beginning, let's say I'm a licensed realtor, but I'm also looking for a cash buy. I'd probably start out the sales call with something like, hey, as you know, I'm a licensed realtor. I license a lot of houses. Or I sell a lot of houses and list them. So I've got a really good idea of what houses go for and how to assess your house. And what I'm going to do is assess it for what we call a cash buy, kind of as is. So that's what we're going to go with. I'll give you the best cash offer we can make. If it works, great. If not, no big deal. If I can think of any other options that might work for you, I'll bring those up as well, right? Cool. So what you don't want to do is get to the end and they feel like it's a switch or, you flipped. You got to prepare them for it.
Dude, that's good right there, man. So anyone out there that is a hybrid, if you're an agent that has the option to then purchase a house, that right there is the way to do it. Go back and reverse and listen to that last 15 seconds because he walks exactly through that. And dude, here's one of the cool things. We're putting together an amazing resource on negotiation. Everyone can get it at carrot.com/close, carrot.com/close, CLOSE, not clothes like shirts and t-shirts and underwear, but close like CLOSE. And you're going to be able to get a bunch of cool stuff. So get John's magic message, it says, in 6 questions to ask sellers, along with other resources that we're going to have around negotiation. And one thing that you guys will notice as John was talking and kind of role playing, this is just a small fraction of that tool set that he's got when he's going to talk with sellers and when his clients are. And the key really is knowing those questions to ask and knowing when to ask them and knowing how to pace things. And so, we've put together an amazing resource for you guys to go grab it, carrot.com/close. John, let's give maybe 1 or 2 of those questions to kind of pique their interest. What are a couple of those questions that would be really, really good questions for people in their tool belt that they would get there, and they'll unlock the other ones when they get there too.
Yeah. So, everybody asks about motivation or distress or why are you selling? But people often stop there. I know a lot of investors and acquisition managers are just like, I know I'm supposed to ask about motivation. So, okay, you're tired of the house, check and move on. The next question that you should ask, that's incredibly easy, that's often skipped, is just getting them to talk a little bit more about whatever they mentioned. So there's not a specific question, right? My favorite is always, they say, I'm tired of the house, right? My go-to, because I'm kind of simple and I say the same stuff over and over again, my go-to is, when you say blank, what do you mean? So if they say, I'm tired of the house, what do you mean? Well, there's been a lot of repairs. Give me an example. How often do you got to deal with that? Is that in your world a big deal, or just a minor kind of, I don't know, pain? Yep. Right. And you just keep talking about it. So the difference between great salespeople and average salespeople, based on some of the best research out there in sales, is those types of questions, those digging questions. They're called, in spin selling, they're called implication questions. We call them impact questions. It's the same thing. It's just getting down to the root of the problem, right? Somebody's house falling apart is not why they would sell the house, not why they'd sell to you. But the way that makes them feel, the things that they can't do, the stress that it puts on them, the way it impacts family members and loved ones, that's the reason why they'd sell their house. So you can't just stop with the house is falling down. You got to dive into, how is that actually impacting you, right? Because if they say, the house is falling apart, and you get into those questions, they go, you know what? It's always been that way. It actually doesn't bother me at all. Well, you don't want to base your whole presentation based on something they don't care about, right? So you got to just keep the conversation going. So there's, when you say blank, what do you mean? And is that a big deal or a little deal? Those are just really, even stuff like really, or you got to be kidding me. Just getting them to keep talking, extremely effective. The only recorded difference between great salespeople and average or poor salespeople. But most people just don't do it. They just move on.
Dude, this is so good, man. On the leadership side of things, so here at Carrot, we've got 40 some odd team members now, and my biggest challenge, John, is coaching, right? Is stepping into coaching our leaders now, because that's where the real scale and leverage comes from. And I got a book on the leadership coaching side of things called The Coaching Habit. And then the second book was called The Advice Trap. And it's so cool because now whenever I'm coaching my leaders, I've literally got, this is dozens of questions in a very specific path. Hey, ask them this first, then this, then this. And it's got, well, if they say something like this, here's a few questions to kind of ways to position the next talk. And I can tell you, having that resource has been gold for me as a leader, because it isn't ingrained in my mind yet. In my practice, I'm starting to get there. And it's been changing the game. I'm probably half the time still catching myself giving advice and half the time catching myself coaching better, but it's getting better. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that resource, carrot.com/close, is going to give you some of those things. But if you guys want like the deep dive on it, that's exactly what John's program does. I'm not here to sell it. I don't make money on doing it, but I want to make sure that you guys get an amazing resource you can use today at carrot.com/closed. You can use it today, close more deals today. But John, if they're wanting to dive in more with you outside of the other podcasts that you've done here, where can people connect with you, man?
Yeah. So on our website, we've got probably 50 to 100 podcasts we've done, and probably 100 plus just simple training videos. MidwestRev.com. You can also get to it through REISalesAcademy.com. Probably easier to remember that one. And then we've got a YouTube channel by the same name, the REI Sales Academy, with tons of videos we put out.
Dude, I like it. So I'm going to do a quick recap here, guys and gals. We went over some of the core mistakes that people make, asking for the price up front, also giving an offer too soon. He walks exactly through how to wade through those. Talks about the give and take. I love the give and take, because that's something I've caught myself in as well. And if you start to walk back your price too much, like you were mentioning, then it becomes an ethics issue. Then it's like, oh, shoot, why didn't you just give me that price the first time if you're willing to cave that quick? And so having that give and take is awesome. And it's on honest, ethical, makes it really, really good. Win-win for everybody. And he walked through so many other amazing things. Take this episode, listen to it 2 or 3 times, write down the words John said, and go practice those when you go out there the next time. And one really cool thing for agents, if you're a hybrid on the agent side, John also walked you through what you could potentially say out of the gate as an agent to position yourself in a really, really good way to serve them great. So John, I'm pumped that you're on here again, man. And I was going to say, you might be the first third timer. I think Adrian has been on here a bunch. What's that? Yeah, Tyler Ford's been on here a bunch. So you're in rarefied air as far as coming back to the podcast 3 times. And I appreciate you, man. Everyone loves hearing the role playing, but also that's the thing. They've only had the tip of the iceberg here. Guys, go to his website, learn more, go to his podcast, learn more. We'll link them up below this right here. And John, appreciate the heck out of you, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
For sure. Guys, go to carrot.com/close for the free resource from John and 2 other resources to help you increase your negotiations, close more leads into deals with the same leads you got now. And we're going to help you guys be more profitable and serve more sellers. Thank you guys. Have an amazing rest of the week.